Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna,
Oh Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari. Oh Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhi. Oh Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe. Oh Radhe 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Habit Hari Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai. Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Oma Stotra Srashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Oma Stotra Srashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Oma Stotra Srashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Param Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Oma Stotra Srashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Oma Stotra Srashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Satam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sabhavoma Jagannathas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Arupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhakti Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Paradasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parasadi Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikha Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai. Barihat Mridanga Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai. The Lordship Sri Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai. Gopinath Bhavan Ki Jai. Sri Siksastakam Ki Jai. Ananta Gauda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Agnati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravachantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Tarvo Vinidustam Sarvabhutam Mulimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vina Aparadha Lakshay Chittascha Karmaditaram Gamadye Kripa Mayitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Naradram Tato Mamanasti Gatyena Chapi I first of all offer millions of Dandabhat Pranamas unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nityalila, Pravishta Om, Astotar Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Swami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nityalila, Pravishta Om, Astotar Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandabhat Pranamas. So today we've reached the second verse, and we've developed our appreciation, I hope, for the identity and personality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I've discussed the history from Krishna to Mahaprabhu, the current of bhakti, and what Mahaprabhu did to reconcile the different philosophical differences at the time between the different sampradayas, and how he bestowed this highest wealth. We were talking about the question the other day, why is it that Mahaprabhu has given, or why is it that this amazing fortune is in the lowest, most degraded of all the ages, not just Kali Yuga, which is the most degraded age, but the most degraded of all the other Kali Yugas I was describing yesterday. This is the most fallen of all the other Kali Yugas. So Krishna wants to give his mercy. He can give his mercy to the most fallen. So as we become more and more fallen, Krishna will make an opportunity for us to receive that mercy. It's described in Jaiva Dharma. There are two reasons why Krishna throws the jiva into this material consciousness, and one of them is for his lila, and the second one is to bestow his mercy. How can Krishna ever show his karuna shakti, his compassion shakti, in Vaikuntha or in Goloka Vrindavan? It's not possible. Everyone's completely satisfied in the spiritual world. But Krishna makes the arrangement so that we become misguided or misdirected. It's described that our Bal Shakti, or that spiritual strength, is not there when we make that original decision, that choice to go towards Maya, when we become attracted by the material energy rather than go towards that attraction to Krishna. So we fall into this world and we become so completely degraded. We forget what it is to almost be human sometimes. I mean, today when you see the activities on the planet, we all know, we don't have to go into those social things, but we know how subhuman standards, even animals behave in a better way than the people often in the world today. So as that soul, that jiva, becomes increasingly more degraded, Krishna gives the opportunity where they can pick up the very highest mercy. So this is actually the reason why Mahaprabhu has advented this understanding of spontaneous attraction to Krishna in the darkness of this age. So we've been going through that history, and we've been carefully going through the first verse. If you've captured something of the first verse, this is very wonderful. It's describing these 7 jewels. The first jewel is that the holy name, or rather the holy name bestows these 7 exalted jewels on the jiva. We cannot break out of this unfortunate predicament we're in. We cannot get the required humility to absorb this high truth without mercy. We can hear about humility, but we can't become humble really without mercy. We just sang this Gurudev Kripa Bindo Diya, saying, give me a drop of mercy to be more humble than the straw in the street. We need mercy to become humble. It's impossible for us to really become humble without the mercy of Sri Guru. So the jewel, or that merciful jewel that is bestowed by Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan, first is Anartanivriti, and we discussed that at length. And then is Bhava Mahadavagni Varpanam. This is extinguishing the blazing fire of this material existence, putting out our material desires. This is what the name can bestow. And this brings us to the stage of Nishta. And then Shreya Karaiva Chandrika Vitaranam. this auspicious moonlight beam will shine down. This comes to a stage of ruchi. This is very special jewel that Nam can bestow. And then vidya vadu jivanam. All knowledge is revealed. Therefore the darkness of ignorance of my real identity as a servant of Krishna has been covered over by these misconceptions, by this madness of illusion. Propelled by my material desires, they're completely covered. So by this vidya vadu jivanam, then the true stage of asakti can come. This deep, deep attachment for Krishna, when I cannot take myself away from meditating on Krishna. And then anandam buddhivardhanam, this bliss, this bhav, unlimited bliss. I described yesterday how the jiva has unlimited material desires, more material desires than he can ever fulfill in this body. We cannot fulfill all of our material desires. The materialist, he's trying so hard. He thinks there's problems in the world, and he thinks if he solves these problems, he's going to be happy in the world. He thinks if he has a better economic situation, a nice little house with a nice little fence with some little kids going to the local school, everything else, all sweet, 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 then he's in the illusion that actually he will be happy. He cannot be happy until his real nature is woken up. His real nature, the happiness of his real nature, is to bring pleasure to Krishna, to bring pleasure to the Lord. This is the swarup. This is the nature. We have that nature within us. That is our very essence, is love. And love is a selfless emotion in its reality. It's giving pleasure to Sri Krishna in so many wondrous ways. So we discuss the stage of bhav, and then pratipratam purnamritas vardhanam, that at every step this nectar becomes more and more relishable. This is another gift, another jewel that the holy name bestows. And then finally, prem itself, sarv atma snapanam, bathed, the whole self is fully bathed in the sweetness of the holy name. Krishna bestows his mercy fully through his sound, through his darshan, through his fragrance, through his sense of touch. All is bestowed in the stage of prem. Now, we come to the second verse. Nam namakari bahudar nija sarva shaktis tatrapita nyamata smarahina kalaha etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan maiti durdaivam idrisham ihajani nanurag. You can find these in the songbook. You should have these verses at hand so you can see in the songbook the different words. Now it's saying, it's building up such tremendous hope in this first verse, but in the second verse, all of a sudden, everything has become hopeless. It's saying that all of Krishna's energies are within his name. Nija Sarva Shaktis. All of Krishna's energies are powered within his name. And I described a number of times that this name is not like the name in any other yugas or any other Kali yugas, because it's empowered. And this is the proof of its empowerment. Nija Sarva Shaktis. It's empowered by Krishna's Shakti. But it's saying, Dudaivam. I am so fallen, so wretched, I have no taste for this. It's almost like I've heard how high it is, but suddenly I'm realizing that I'm so unqualified to actually be enthusiastic to taste this name. How wretched am I? How fallen am I? It's almost like a helpless thing. It's described, I spoke before, how Mahaprabhu's mood of humility is increasing more and more and more as he recites each of these splendid verses of the Siksastakam. His humility is going deeper and deeper. Now, this is the Lord himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's saying that he is so wretched that he has no taste for his names. Krishna himself is saying this. So this is a mood of helplessness. Yes, I'm helpless, but the name itself will purify that helpless nature. So this Durdaivam, Idrisham, Ihajani, Nanurag, that I have no rag, I have no taste, Anurag, I have no taste for this name.
What does that mean? Does that mean that the name itself has become impotent when it's trying to act on me? It's like the sun. The sun never is not present. The sun is always shining brightly. But sometimes some mist or some clouds will cover the sun, and we won't receive its benefit. Similarly, the mist or clouds of our unfortunate behavior, more than that, our unfortunate desires, are still paramount in our consciousnesses. We talked about the mirror of the heart, Cheto Darbana Marjan, that mirror to reflect the purity of Krishna and our own Swarup, to reflect it out, must be cleansed of the dust. So we discussed what was the dust, the different anartas, and then at the stage of Nishtha, what is Anishtita Bhakti and what is Nishtita Bhakti. All these different gifts that the Acharyas have given to us to examine. What are these particles of the dust that are obscuring my vision on that Supreme Lord? So, there are primary names and there are secondary names. Namakari Bahuda. Bahuda means that Krishna has many names. Bahu. It means many. He has many names. If we take to his primary names, then the primary effect can take place very quickly. If we chant his secondary names have been described like Brahm or Param. These are like secondary names. But primary names are like Govinda, Gopal, Radha Raman, Gopinath, Damodar. These are primary names. Krishna, this is a primary name. This primary name has the power to act very, very quickly. But what is it that's stopping this action taking place? I just want to read what Srila Gurudev speaks about this. He says, if someone has been chanting the holy name for a long time, but his heart is not melting, it is certain that he is a nam aparadha. It's certain. The holy name is all-powerful. Sarva Shaktiman, we've just been saying. Nija Sharva Shaktis, all the power is in the holy name. But no immediate result takes place in a heart that is hard like stone. To criticize sadhus or to commit other such offenses obstructs the desired transformation of the heart. I described the other day, do you remember what is the difference between a sin and an offense? Remember? A sin is pertaining to the body. If I do something in the material realm that is socially not acceptable or very aggressive, etc., devious, this is a sin. And the reaction to that sin will affect the body. But the reaction to an offense, it obstructs the soul's vision. You can't see purity if you've committed offense. You see everything in darkness. So we should understand this difference. If the obstruction is ordinary, the utterance of the holy name manifests as a semblance of the name, namabhasa. Now this is exactly like the case of Ajamil. Ajamil was not in the company of sadhus to criticize them. He was the most sinful, fallen wretch. He had left his good Brahminical wife. He had gone with a prostitute. He had taken all the wealth from his family. He had gone and robbed and killed and done so many shocking things just to please that prostitute. He had 10 sons by her. He left all his Brahminical behavior behind, following the path of lust. He was so sinful that the Yamadutas at the time of his death were convinced that the only place where he should go to the fires of hell, or take his fire to hell and burn there. But they were intercepted by the shining bright Vishnu Dutas, who chastised them heavily Or what do you think you're doing? You're supposed to be the managers of the universe, and you don't even know what you're doing? The Yamadutas, they were shocked, but this man is so sinful. This man has committed yards and yards of sins. How can it be that he should not go to hell? And then the Vishnuduta said, explain to us religious principles. And then the Yamadutas very carefully, very beautifully described the path of karma kand, that by doing good acts you reap a good result, and by doing bad acts you have to suffer the karma for those actions. Then they described the path of gyan kand, that by speculation, by study of the scriptures and so on, this is a very powerful purification on the heart. And if you're not doing any of that, you're not actually purifying yourself of all your sins. And they describe very beautifully. And even after all that description, still the Vishnudutas chastise again the Yamadutas. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything. You don't understand that the name Narayan is more powerful than any of these processes. Because remember, in this pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 6th canto, Parikshit Maharaj, he's asking Sukadeva Goswami. He's just heard about the shocking hellish planets. And he wants to assist the jivas in not going to the hellish planets. So he asks, how can I be purified from going to the hellish planets? How can the jivas in this world? And then Sukadeva Goswami, he actually tells him the path of karma kand and gyan kand, this path of doing good activities. Parikshit Maharaj, with his brilliant intelligence, he rejects that. He said, no, this is actually like the bathing of an elephant. An elephant baths in the lake, comes out, and then again covers himself with dust. So what is the point of doing these pious activities to get purified, and then the sins are just going to the seeds are going the effects of the seeds will manifest again. What's the point of doing that? And then Sukadeva Goswami describes this beautiful pastime of Ajamil to show the power of the holy name. That even though Ajamil was so sinful, he was chanting the name of his small son at his advanced age of over 80 or so. He was doting on his son for the last couple of 3 months of his life, calling Narayan, Narayan, come and eat, Narayan, come and sit with me, Narayan, come and walk, Narayan, come and see this, saying Narayan, Narayan constantly. Gurudev has described that the first time he said Narayan, there was some aparadha there, but the second time it was only namabhasa. Namabhasa is of two sorts. Namabhasa is pratibimba and chaya. Do you understand these two terms? Don't become distracted by the Sanskrit. Pratibimba means a reflection. If I have this here and it's making a shadow, and if it's there and it's, say, reflecting in a bowl of water, the reflection is not connected with the object. Do you understand? This is what pratibimba means. Pratibimba means a reflection. It's not connected with the principal object. Whereas the second one, chaya means shadow. The shadow is connected with the object. In other words, if my namabhasa is pratibimba, then my desires are not fundamentally connected to the object. I have some impersonal, perhaps mayavad tendency. I'm actually doing all this chanting to achieve some name and fame, or to achieve some material facility, or something other than what the name can really bestow. This is called pratibimba, and it means reflection. You can remember that this reflection, it's not connected to the object. So this practice is not directly connected to Krishna. It's a reflection, it's pratibimba. But still it's considered nam, because that person, if they're practicing taking nam, perhaps they will be purified eventually. But it's still not pure name. And then there is chaya. Now chaya is connected to the object. We may be very fallen, but still our motive and our desire, our goal, is to achieve service to Radha and Krishna. Perhaps I'm committing all sorts of other offenses on the way, but nevertheless my motive is connected, just like a shadow. It's connected to the object. So try and remember only these two types of namabhasa, because we're talking today about nam aparadha, we're talking about namabhasa and shuddhanam, because this is what is described in this second verse. Namnamakari bahudar nija sharva shaktis. This bahudar, Krishna has many names. So this is like showing what is shuddhanam. And then sarva shaktis, all energies are there, power. And then the third point in this verse, but I am so unfortunate, duldaivam, that I have no taste for this. Why do I have no taste? Because I'm committing nam aparadha. This is what Srila Gurudev is saying. In the case of Ajamil, when the Vishnu Dutas heard the Yamadutas speaking like this, then they educated the Yamadutas. They told them, no, the name of Narayan or Krishna, this will purify and nullify any of these effects. And then the Vishnu Dutas, they disappeared. Ajamil, he tried to speak to them and then they disappeared. Then the Yamadutas, they went back to Lord Yamaraj and they were ready themselves to commit suicide. They were so disturbed. They were thinking that Lord Yamaraj was the Lord of the universe. This is the only Lord that they knew. They didn't know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they came into Lord Yamaraj's court and they described what has happened. And they had decided, they had resolved within their hearts that if he doesn't satisfy us, then we are no longer going to maintain our lives. This was the mood of the Yamadutas. And then, when they made their inquiry, Lord Yamaraj was so pleased to hear that inquiry. So in those fires of hell, he was able to glorify the Lord. He said, Etavan eva lokeshmin pumsam dharma praushmito bhakti yoge bhagavati tannama granadibi. He said like this to the Yamadutas. He was saying that in all the worlds, the highest welfare for humanity, pumsam, is actually tannama granadibi, is this chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So those Yamadutas, they heard this glorification of Nam in hell by Lord Yamaraj himself. And then it's described how Ajamil, he went to Haridwar, and then he seriously took shelter of name, and very quickly he was actually liberated from there. But he wasn't committing Nam aparadha, that's why the Vishnu Dutas came. So Nam aparadha will obstruct the soul. It'll directly affect my very swarup if I create an aparadha. And a sin won't, but an aparadha or an offense will. This is why we have to be so cautious. This is what Gurudev is saying, that even if you've been chanting for so many years, if these moods of finding fault in devotees is still going on, then it's definitely going to be obstructing our progress. He's saying, if the obstruction is ordinary, the utterance of the holy name manifests as a semblance of the name, namabhasa. So we just discussed that. If the obstruction is deep, however, then it manifests as nam aparadha. In other words, by offenses committed at the lotus feet of a great personality, Mahapurush, one's heart becomes hard like iron, and it is not melted by Shravanam, Kirtanam, etc. So, it's very helpful for us to hear the offenses. Actually, when I first became a devotee in Australia, every single morning at Mangalati, we used to read the 10 offenses. We used to hear the 10 offenses regularly. It was very, very helpful. If you're a newer person to this process, you should have a copy somewhere of the 10 offenses to the holy name, and regularly, either once a week or once a fortnight or once a month or every Ekadashi or every Purnima, some particular day you should make a vow to again refresh the 10 offenses, because this is our fundamental obstruction. I don't see so many of the devotees rolling on the ground in ecstasy and bhav. Therefore, it must be that we're making some offense to slow the progress of that result down. So, I'm just understanding from my own life. Let me just see. Everything is in this Bhajan Rahasya. Yes? Yes, and in the Bhajan Rahasya. Archana Dipika also. What I've done with this, my Bhajan Rahasya, I've written a whole index in the back of where all these different points are. In the next publication, I hope we have a good index in this Bhajan Rahasya, because there's so much, it's packed with every aspect. Today we're discussing the second verse. The second verse, there are 3 principal aspects to it. The first is that Krishna's names are many. Which names should we chant? And I've already discussed that. There are secondary names and there are primary names. I'm not going to dwell on that because I think you already know that. It's quite simple. If we were born in Indian families, we would probably know a lot of other names for Krishna. We are actually very blessed with our limited amount of knowledge, in a sense. We've only ever heard the primary names principally. What Prabhupada taught us, what Gurudev has taught us, we haven't been so familiar with lots of other names. So I'm not going to dwell on that point so much. And then the power within the name, I've already discussed to quite a degree. But this Durdaivam, Ihajani Nanurag, Mahaprabhu is saying himself that he has no taste, or not no taste, he's feeling so wretched and helpless that he can't capitalize on the gift. So now we're discussing what it is that is making us helpless. What is it that's slowing us down in our progress? It's these aparadhas. And I said the other day, what does aparadha mean? Manohar.
Offense.
Against Radha or without Radha. Aparadha. No Radha. Imagine the heart without Radha. Wouldn't we become frantic? Running around begging forgiveness everywhere, at every tree, every ant, every cat and dog, every mouse. Oh, please forgive me for my offenses. Having that mood, desperately wanting forgiveness. Because if I'm not in bhav, then I must be committing some offenses. So, in here, Gurudev has described, and I want to go through them, because I think it's very, very important. It's the key. If we can purify ourselves and meditate just for a few, 15, 20 minutes this morning on these offenses, bring them up to the front of the consciousness so you can remember them, so you can begin to purify them, and then make some progress to allow the sun of Nam to penetrate the darkness of the heart. So the first offense, to criticize the devotees of Bhagavan, is a grievous offense to the holy name. How can Sri Nam Prabhu tolerate criticism of those great souls who are deeply devoted to him and who spread his glories throughout the world? Therefore, the first offense is criticism of sadhus and devotees. Certainly in the Western world, well, as much as anywhere, but we're so conditioned to criticize, to make judgments. If you pick up any newspaper, if you hear any news bulletin, there's so much enviousness. Actually, the quality of envy is crackling in the world today. This is the principal quality. This enviousness, wanting something that somebody else has, not satisfied with what I have myself, and criticizing somebody. We're almost like born into this envious atmosphere, always wanting to take advantage of the other person. Sometimes just in a sense of my own dominance over that person. My false ego, oh, I want to show how I'm actually better than you. I know more verses than you. I chant more than you. I do this, I do that. So many things like that. We can live our lives in this horrible world of envy, trying to take advantage of each other. This is very hurtful, actually, to those around us. How to purify that? We cannot purify it. Nam will purify it, yeah.
What's the difference between purifying oneself from influences by other people on ourselves, which we can't accept, which I think is a healthy process, and criticizing in the sense to put down others in word or thought, to pick on them, to be angry of them, as you just described? Isn't there a difference between these? The first one I described, I find necessary in my life to kind of set a border, protective border for myself.
Envious means, listen, enviousness means, he's asking about, in his own life, he has to make a boundary. Because he can't just let everybody walk into his life and take over his energy. So at some point he has to make a judgment in who will he allow to become intimate and who not. Who will he allow to influence him and who won't he allow to influence him. No problem. You're a stupid man if you don't have those boundaries. Of course you have those boundaries. But those persons who you don't want to be influenced by, you don't have to degrade them. You don't have to criticize. You just have to appreciate, well, we're not of the same mood. It doesn't seem that my bhakti is increased in your association. That's all. Every single soul is a spirit soul. One time Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj was asked, oh, but Maharaj, what happens if we criticize someone who's been doing something really bad and obnoxious? Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj replied, Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Usually that person who is behaving really badly and in an obnoxious way, like a child, usually is hurting like crazy for some love and affection. That is usually the condition of that person's heart. You see in a family where a child has been deprived of affection from the mother, it becomes sometimes very angry or furious or throws tantrums or all kinds of things, to get attention. They want attention. They're not getting it by, it seems, doing good things. So to hell with it. I'll do something bad and maybe that'll give me attention. Sometimes I see these young kids today, they're walking around and they have pins stuck in their lips and on their eyes, and God, man. I mean, what sort of attention are they looking for? It just looks so horrible to me anyway. It always makes me think that they're looking for, or they wear blue hair and red hair, or something so outrageous. It makes me feel that they're so unloved, that they need to demonstrate something so, extraordinary to try and get attention from somebody. It's a symptom of some sickness. Sickness comes from being deprived of affection. You see little lambs, if they're born in the middle of winter, if they don't get their mother's milk within the first hour, they die regularly. I can remember staying on one farm in Australia, and the lambs, they would die regularly if they didn't get the first milk. If they don't get that first contact with affection and love in this world, then they can just leave their bodies. They get their love through their mother's milk. It's not just physically nourishing. There's also an emotional nourishment there. So we all need nourishing, and we all have the ability to nourish. If we're all walking around looking for someone else to nourish me, this is a very inverted, rather selfish mentality that, as we mature, needs to be purified. A little child, not mature, will always think itself the center of attention. But as we grow up, and then that child comes to a marriageable age and they have to look after children, that material selfishness starts to go away because they have to take care of their families. But as spiritual children, our innate selfishness starts to go away when we're realizing the beauty and love that our Supreme Lord has for all jivas. All jivas are loved so much by Krishna. Of course, Krishna's devotees are loved more, you can say, like the good sons of a father. So this, Srila Gurudeva's, or Shamrani Didi, she gave us this beautiful book, Harmony, which discusses all of these things in detail. Shamrani Didi, she knew or understood, or she was instructed directly by Gurudev to do it, I don't know, but she knew how much we needed something of this in the world today. for our society to be successful, there's only one quality that people look for when they come into any Sangha. Do they like me or not? Are they going to welcome me or not? I can remember when I used to live in Vrindavan going to this temple right next door here, Srila Vamana Maharaj's temple. What do you call that temple? Gopinath temple. And every time I went there was one devotee, Chandan his name was, he would always give me a leaf, a duna of prasad, every single time. You could never go there, even any time of day. And very quickly he would deliver that. I felt so much appreciated and validated and accepted and loved, because in those days being Western was sometimes like, you know, you got the rough treatment. But in that particular temple there was so much of, I remember in Mathura, Premananda Prabhu was just so much giving that affection. This is what people look. It doesn't matter how high philosophy you speak or whatever. If you don't have time for someone or some caring for someone, then that person's not going to be attracted. And what else will they see? They will see what are the relationships amongst the devotees living there. If the relationships are very sweet and respectful, they will feel very much this is a safe sanctuary. But if everyone is carving each other up and writing complaints about everyone and etc., it's phenomenal, but this sometimes seems often to happen in the society of devotees. One devotee once said, we spend so long translating books, we spend even longer printing them and then trying to distribute them. Finally, we distribute one book, and then that person who receives the book, a very rare soul, comes back to the temple to get another book. And then finally, maybe after some time, he moves into the temple. And then what do? We start criticizing him. It happens. Why? Because we must be so unfortunate, dudaiva, so wretched, that I haven't understood even the beginning of this process, which is only about love. It is only about love. Why do we keep putting ourselves in the front? Our own considerations first. First there is material, an idea of material affection and respect. Even that is often lacking sometimes in the society of devotees. It's remarkable. It's a phenomenon. We seem to have the highest welfare and we have the very bottom as well. We have both sides of the scale. I don't know the answer. I'm just saying that it's a strange phenomenon. But if we can hear about these things in some regular way, particularly if we want to take Nam, this is about Siksastakam. This is about wanting to take the gift of Mahaprabhu to purify my wretched condition. Then I must examine these 10 offenses regularly. And the first offense is to criticize and blaspheme the devotees. Now, someone might say, well, I was just wanting to help that devotee. But very often it may come out in a very critical way. If that devotee is asking for your help, then give it. But if they don't ask for it, it's none of your business. How many times has Gurudev said that? Gurudev said, I am the Guru. I will chastise. It's not your job. It's never your job to do that. He said so many times, but we feel so important. We're so buoyed up by our own sense of specialness.
He said, if you can't change him, don't criticize. If you don't have the power to change someone.
You don't. None of us do. None of us in the world do. We can influence each other greatly. What sort of influence do we want to share with each other? Whatever influence we are going to put out, be assured that same influence will actually come back. I think here in Gopinath Bhavan you have a very wonderful situation. It seems to me, I've been here for a few days now, and personally I feel very free and I feel there is so much affection and sweetness actually here in this temple. I don't mean any of these criticisms that I'm saying. Am I saying criticisms? I'm trying to speak what I perceive and how to cure, but I feel here it's a very wonderful place to actually say. I don't feel that. I think because you don't have any boss here. As soon as you have a boss, then you have somebody else who wants to be a boss, and then all of this friction begins, you know? But without that whole pecking order, you can have a very peaceful environment where people are trying to help each other. Why not? Why don't we try and help each other? Why be afraid? What is this fear? Perhaps it's our fear that generates this criticism. There's a verse, Dviti yabini vyeshitam syat, isadupatasya vipareyo shmiti. What's that? Tan maya tayo tada buddha tvam bhaktyakeksham guru devata. Can you say it loudly? Beautiful. It's so good for us to say these verses, yeah, Guru Devatma Bhaktyam. That fear, bhayam, develops by our absorption in material activities or objects. That's how fear develops. You're not afraid if you're not immersed in material mentality. What do you have to be afraid of? There's no fear. But if you're fearful of losing something or not having something, then that's a material consideration, therefore there's fear. But there's no fear in a more purified state of consciousness. So perhaps this fear is what is pushes this critical tendency up. Fear that my false ego may disappear altogether. That may be a fearful thought for us. If you don't have your mask, your front, what we interact with. Okay, any way you can think about this. So that's the first offense. Huh?
A few times he said, Krishna consciousness, the less one's Krishna consciousness, the more fear he will have. So, because we're coming from an impersonal environment, that most of the time they don't even believe that God exists. And there's this competition between each other for power. So the personal aspect of harmony and spiritual harmony and all that is not really there. It's all business dealing. So in spiritual life we're taught how to harmonize with each other and cooperate with each other and love each other. But the less Krishna conscious you are, or the more you develop, then we can harmonize and love each other and express that easily.
Yeah.
Otherwise the fear is there that we'll be exploited. It may be subtle.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be gross. It can be very subtle.
We have to really attend to this one. We want to be at least as liberated as Ajamil was from aparadha. Ajamil was just committing some namabhasa, and he got Shuddha Nam. You know, he wasn't committing the aparadha. We don't want to. So how to, in our individual lives, purify whatever offenses. In the 11th canto, it's described in one place how one should offer obeisances to every living entity in the Dham, at least in the mind. If we're looking to honor everybody and every tree, every creature, this is very helpful for our bhakti. It's very purifying. We must attend to this. It's like a disease that if it's not checked, it can go on for years and years and years and years and years. You can become a very, very old devotee and still be, criticizing so many other devotees. What happened to Durvasa Rishi? When he criticized Ambarish, he had to run for a whole year from the Sudarsana Chakra. And then Krishna said, I cannot even stop this Sudarsana Chakra. You have to go back and beg forgiveness from Ambarish Maharaj. And then by his forgiveness, then it will stop. And contrary to that, what was Ambarish doing while he was running? Ambarish was praying to Sudarsana Chakra, I will give you all my pious credits if you don't burn this Brahmana. He was the opposite of that. So we have to... These are the offenses that are obstructing the purity of Nam flourishing in the heart. The second one, in this world, a person who by mundane intelligence distinguished between the all-auspicious transcendental holy name form, qualities and pastimes of Sri Vishnu and the possessor of the holy name, Nami Vishnu, considering them to be independent or different from him, as is the case with material objects, commits an offense against the holy name. In other words, if we think that the name and Krishna are different, this is an offense. The name of Krishna and Krishna himself are the same. I told you that story yesterday, how Krishna was painting on Sri Radha's foot with the lac, and he knew himself the power of his name. Even the power of his name was getting imprinted onto Sri Radha's foot, and he felt such ecstasy. There are so many pastimes of the power of the name, being non-different. To the whole Brahman, there's a story of, in the Swagaloka one time, Narad, he challenged all the demigods to take their chariots and fly all around the Brahman 3 times. And the person who came first, that person would be honored over everybody else. He would take the post of the most honored person in the heavenly planets. So they all went burning off on their chariots, except Ganeshji, who rides a little mouse carrier, huge, big Ganeshji. How could his mouse carrier possibly compete with those others? And then Narad came and said, look, I will just vibrate the holy name, and you circumambulate me 3 times, and this is counted as more than going around the whole Brahman 3 times. So Ganeshji, he did that, went to Lord Brahma, and he won. That's just, some small proof. But the name and Krishna, Namna Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, that this name and Krishna are non-different. How can it affect us so strongly? When we chant every day, it affects the consciousness so strongly. It's so powerful. It is Krishna himself. So it's an offense not to appreciate that Krishna's name and Krishna himself are the same. That's the second offense. Then, Guru Avyaga, to disregard the Guru who is established in all the truths regarding the holy name, considering him to be an ordinary man possessing a perishable body, composed of material elements. In other words, Guru aparadha. In other words, not honoring Guru sufficiently. So I somehow feel that we all understand this very deeply. We've been so much blessed with such a powerful personality, or 2 powerful personalities in our lives, that we have witnessed Krishna coming through that personality. So I think for most of us, we don't commit this offense so gravely. It's the first offense that usually stumbles us, and the 10th offense. So the 4th offense is to find fault with the Vedas, the eternal Puranas and other scriptures. All the Vedas and Upanishads illuminate the glories of the holy name. To find fault with the mantras in which the holy name is glorified is nam aparadha. Due to misfortune, some persons neglect the Shruti mantras in which the glories of Nam are indicated and give more honor to other instructions of the Shrutis. This is also Nam aparadha. So to neglect the glories that are spoken of in the scriptures and to think or to minimize those scriptures. Because actually, if you read in Jivadharma, for example, I think it's the 23rd chapter, the glories of Nam, there's verse after verse after verse after verse after verse Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the glorification of Nam. It's endless, endless, endless. It's very wonderful to read that, to become inspired again, to chant more, or to hear, or to honor the name. So to not minimize those scriptures that glorify the name. And then the 5th, to consider the glories of Harinam to be exaggerated. The scriptures state that all of Bhagavan's potencies are contained within his name. This is what we're talking about today. Nirja Sarva Shaktis. This is what is in today's shloka, this 2nd verse of Siksastakam. So in this 2nd verse, Mahaprabhu is showing us how we can enter into the name. He's said the first 7 jewels in the first verse, like summary. Now he's beginning to show us what are directly the obstacles that are stopping us receiving this name. And it's in these offenses. This is the reason why we're not received. This is why I'm in a wretched condition and I'm feeling helpless, because I'm committing these aparadhas. The scriptures state that all of Bhagavan's potencies are contained within his name. Even the Bible is saying, hallowed be thy name. Right? Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. All, even Islamic scriptures glorify the name. All scriptures glorify the name of God. It's not material or mundane. And that the holy name is completely transcendental and therefore capable of destroying one's bondage to the material world. All these glories of the holy name are the supreme truth. One should never associate with those who have no faith in them and who say that Shastra exaggerates the glories of the holy name. If such an unfaithful person appears before one's eyes, one should take bath still wearing the clothes he has on. This is the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so offensive to hear from that person who takes no respect for the potencies of the holy name. Very dangerous to be in that association. Okay, number 6. To consider Bhagavan's name to be imaginary. What we have to do is to get a sheet, so it's just saying these offenses very briefly, so we can remember at least the heart of each offense. I'm reading in a bit more detail, but you should regularly be able to, I have, if anyone wants a printout, just on one page, you can have it laminated in your home or wherever, and regularly just refresh these offenses. To consider Bhagavan's name to be imaginary. Mayavads and materialists, Kamavadis consider Brahman, which is without name or form, to be the supreme truth, and they say that the rishis manufactured names like Ram and Krishna, thinking such names would perfect their activities. These people are nam-aparadhis. In other words, they're using the holy name for some material benefit. They're chanting Hare Krishna for some material benefit. The holy names will give you any sort of material benefit. I can remember just a little while ago even, I was on a station in London and there had been a bomb scare. It was on the underground and the station just, it was in rush hour, Bakerloo line, and it just got more and more crowded. And to begin with, it was sort of like a bit humorous. But then I had my back against the wall, and after some time, it was almost like I was going to be squashed and crushed to death. It reminded me of going through Keshigat, on a prikrama. It became really like a little freaky. And I just suddenly remembered, because I hadn't been chanting, I had my beads, but I suddenly took my beads and started chanting. As soon as I hit the first mantra, the train came in. And then I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And then a day later, I was in a traffic jam, going somewhere on a bus. One of those long, I thought, well, I'll try it again. This time I chanted like 3 or 4 names, and again the traffic jam was cleared. So there's no doubt that actually the names can do all kinds of mystical potencies. But we should never, ever, ever use them for anything other than to purify the heart and to take us quickly to the lotus shelter of Srila Gurudev. But it's true, the power in the holy name, don't doubt it. Okay, number 7. One who has a tendency to commit sinful activities and material activities on the strength of the holy name cannot be purified, even if he performs superficial yoga processes such as yama, niyama, dhyama, and dharana. This is certain. So the holy name is not on the same platform as these other yogic processes. To think that the holy name is on the same platform as other practices is incorrect. It's an aparadha. If I think, oh well, I'll do this and this and this and I'll get the same result as I would if I chant Hare Krishna, it's not true. This is an aparadha. Okay, number 8. To consider religiosity, vows, renunciation, fire sacrifices, and other ordinary pious activities to be equal with or compared to the transcendental name of Bhagavan is a sign of inattentiveness and carelessness, and this is an offense. So to be doing other activities like fire yajnas and so on, and to be thinking that by doing this without the chanting of the holy name, that it will be auspicious. So I'm using the holy name to make these various activities more auspicious, like in a yajna, for example. We take the holy name, we're chanting the holy name constantly through any sort of activity that we have. So this is necessary. And if this activity is not going on, if it's just simply following vows, etc., then, and I'm thinking that this is going to be the same as chanting Hare Krishna, then this is an aparadha. These 2-3 offenses, they sound similar, but there are differences within them. It's like the acharyas have covered every angle here. The 9th, to instruct the glories of the holy name to the faithless persons who are averse to hearing and chanting is also nam aparadha. This has often been very personally confusing to me, because we're always trying to encourage sometimes groups of meat-eaters, etc., to take to the holy name. But I understand this to mean if you start to explain very esoteric topics about Radha and Krishna to someone who has no faith, then this gives that person an opening to be very offensive to Radha and Krishna. If you start to describe some intimate situation and they have no faith, they may become very, very offensive to Radha and Krishna, and that will be to their detriment rather than to their advantage. You understand? This is how I understand. Yes, to instruct the holy name, of course, we will instruct the holy name to the masses, but what is the holy name? What is the instruction of the holy name? If I start to instruct the holy name, what is the first meaning of Hare? That first meaning is Hare, that is Sri Radha, who controls the Lord of the universe, Sri Krishna. If I get into describing that in great detail, then that person may become envious, and by that envy may begin to commit aparadha. So I don't describe it in detail, but I will tell them the glories of the holy name, but without the detail. Don't let them become offensive. We have to use our God-given intelligence to discriminate in these cases. Now the 10th. The 10th, I think, is actually, besides the first, one of the most common offenses that we make, to consider that after hearing so many instructions on the holy name, that I'm still maintaining my various material attachments. This is an offense, this is an aparadha. After I've heard so much glorification of the holy name, I'm still holding on to my various material attachments. I haven't had the faith to actually believe. Listen what it's saying. Those who, in spite of hearing the astonishing glories of the holy name, maintain the conception that I am this material body, and that worldly objects of sense gratification are mine, and who show no persistence in or love for the utterance of Sri Nam, are also Nam aparadhis. So many of us are guilty of that regularly, that we put our own various material considerations far ahead of actually the welfare or the progress of our bhakti. We're still holding on to these material attachments, even after I've understood so many instructions on the matter. So this is not easy to actually purify. So we've described a couple of times that it seems that we have the opportunity for the greatest wealth, but simultaneously, it's like a razor's edge. We can commit these various aparadhas and practically uproot our whole previous sukriti that brought us to this place. We have so much good fortune that has brought us to Vrindavan, that has brought us to Sri Guru, that has brought us to the name. We have no idea how many, perhaps millions and even billions of lifetimes it's taken through various species to reach an opportunity where I can hear these truths. It's very, very rare. And now I'm hearing these truths. If I disregard the holy name or dishonor it and commit these aparadhas repeatedly, then my heart is never going to melt. And after some time, I will become very frustrated with trying to get a taste in this association of devotees or in this practice. And I will definitely go and look for a material taste, because the soul has to enjoy something. If it's not enjoying a spiritual taste, it will certainly look for a material taste. It has to, just to survive, just to live, otherwise you commit suicide. The soul by nature is happy. If you're not happy in your practice, it means that you're committing some sort of aparadha. Srila Gurudev once said, you're not even really a devotee if you're not happy. That's quite heavy. It actually means that if you're not in the mode of goodness, because if you're in the mode of goodness, a symptom of the mode of goodness is that you're always happy. That's a symptom of the mode of goodness. One in darkness or in Rajagun, this leads to all kinds. Rajagun is so many desires to be fulfilled, they're always anxious and lamenting. And one in Tamagun is just in ignorance, wasting away and so on. So at least from the mode of goodness, we can springboard into spiritual reality. So this is what I've understood is the principal meaning of this second verse. This is what all the acharyas, I was sharing with you yesterday, I was looking at that book by Srila Bhakti Rakshakshiya Maharaj, also on Siksastakam. He's saying exactly the same 3 points. The point that Krishna has many names, namabhasa bahuda, and we've discussed the different names, and then the names, these primary names, are empowered with all of Krishna's Shaktis. But this point of Durdaivam, this wretchedness that I'm not able to get the benefit of these names. What is the reason for not getting the benefit of these names? The reason is simply, I'm not attentive enough to these aparadhas, these 10 offenses. So regularly, I need to go through them. Regularly, I need to hear them. And I need to know that this is what is definitely obstructing me. We're always looking to forgive each other. Forgiveness is the quality of a Brahman. Always forgiving. It's amazing, you know, if somebody, for example, offends you or disturbs you, you immediately have 2 choices. You can either retaliate or you can forgive. But we have a choice. If you suddenly become angry, you can never say, or you can say, but you haven't understood properly, if you say, oh, he made me angry, so you're allowing yourself to be controlled by them. The monkey made me angry. The monkey is controlling me. Do you want to live with that? I would rather control myself than have the monkey control me. So I refuse to become disturbed by all the various disturbances that are in the world. Today, poor Ramji, he's had to tolerate coming to this class in Gopinath Bhavan. He very much wanted to go to Rup Sanatan, but he can't even get out the front door now. So somehow he's locked in, he's bound here. You have to be very kind to Ram today. He's bound in a prison here. There's no way he can get out. But he may become disturbed and angry. But what is the value with that? What is the point of that? The devotee always carries that verse in a locket. Tattenu kampam susamikshamanam bunjana evatma kritam vipukam hridvag vipuvan vadanam namaste jiveta yom mukti padesa dayabak. He understands that his various sufferings are caused by his various karmic reactions, or the mercy of the Lord. And he tolerates that and waits for that inheritance that is his due, just as a son will wait for the inheritance from the father. We are going to receive this mercy. How would Krishna and Guru, what sort of personalities would they be if they held out this beautiful carrot of Krishna praying, and then they took it back and said, no, you're not really going to have it. We're just playing around with you. No, they're holding it out. You can have it. It's ours. It's going to come. Be absolutely assured. Never be helpless. Gurudev would say repeatedly, don't be hopeless and helpless. Don't be hopeless. So it seems in this verse, this second verse, there is a mood of Mahaprabhu saying that he's hopeless, but by admitting his wretchedness. But it is the power of the name itself that will give him renewed hope to carry on this practice. So these are just some points about the second verse. We'll discuss tonight again aspects of this verse and any other questions. I'll stay here now until the 7th or 8th of December, and that gives enough time for one verse per day. So we'll discuss the basic tattva of the verses in the morning, and in the evening we'll either read some more of Bhajan Rahasya about that verse, or hopefully if you have some questions or inquiries like that, we can discuss in the evening. But we'll carry on another aspect of the same verse. So for one day, we'll do one verse, morning and evening. And we'll do that for the next 6 days. So this is the first of 7 days. So until the 7th or 8th of December, I would like to speak on these verses, if you wish to come and hear those. So does anyone have any points today? We still have a few minutes left. Yeah.
This verse corresponds
Big one?
simultaneously with what you said, it corresponds to Chaitanya, the first two.
That's right. Yes, yes. Chaitodapana Marjana, which is cleansing the heart. How do we cleanse the heart, Didi? Through attending to these aparadhas. Very good point. She's always nicely tying it in with the mat. Each time she asks me, I like this logical approach. I have a logical mind also. I like to go step by step and hear the entire picture. So she's relating this to the mat, that this is relevant to the first line or the first jewel. Tomorrow, Trinada Pisa Nishina, this is the second jewel. This is Nishta, etc., etc. So it progresses through it. If you have this map, it's very, very helpful. And gradually, all the truths of that map will unfold. Even in 7 or practically, what will I be here, 12 or 13 days, we won't be able to discuss everything, but at least you will start the process. It's endless, just as Prem itself is endless, the discussions on these.
It's relevant to the first jewel with the second pair of the holy names.
Yes, it's relevant to the first jewel, but the second pair of holy names, because there are 8 holy names, and it's relevant to the second yama of the day, which is Prata Lila. I'm waiting for Vrindavan Lila to share with me what is the link up between the yamas and the stages of bhakti. She's going to make some secret inquiries, and she's going to tell us very soon. Because I've tried to understand I can understand Nishanta Lila with the rising of the sun, but how can you relate Prata Lila, Krishna's morning pastimes, necessarily with the stage of Nishta? Because it's not as if the yamas of the day are necessarily progressing in a sort of elevated way. It's not like that. They're just periods of the day where Krishna has his pastimes. So she's going to do some research and tell me. Right? I hope. Yeah. What's she saying? Ah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now I understand that. Okay. Okay. They're all fobbing us off. No one's giving us the answer. Okay, no, but I understand. that individually we can realize this connection. I can understand actually the last, Ratri Lila, is compared to the final verse, Aslisya Vapadaradam Panashtomam. This verse, actually I've omitted talking about that 8th verse. I meant to bring this 8th verse in much more prominently as we go through, because everything is actually aimed at the 8th verse. The 8th verse is the conclusion. It's like Prem is the conclusion. If as we're going through this sequence, we know fully where we're going to this Aslisya Vapada Panashto Mam Adarshana Mamam Hatam Karotava Yatatata Vavidatu Lampato Mat Prananas Sa Eva Napraha. This last verse that Radha is saying, oh, you can embrace me or throw me away, or you can enjoy with other lovers in front of me. Still, you are my prananath, life after life. This is such a high statement that Mahaprabhu is making, such a high mood. But this is our goal, to reach that place and appreciate it more deeply. So all the verses are leading to that. So that verse parallels Ratri Lila, where the Rasa Lila takes place. So in that sense, I can relate the Ratri Lila with that final verse and the first verse, but the interim verses, maybe as we progress, we'll have different insights. But this is the splendor of our study, etc., is that these jewels, they just rise out of our hearts the more effort we put into understanding them. Krishna will reveal them. This is the process of actually our journey, so to speak. That with the sincerity of our effort, these different realizations will actually awaken within us and we'll understand. Okay. Yes?
Медитировать надо на аппарате? You said that we have to sit and meditate on our apparatus. But
We what?
You said that we have to sit and meditate on our apparatus. But once they increase it,
No, I didn't actually say you should meditate on your apparat. I said you should refresh regularly what are the offenses. It's just like the anarthas. You don't dwell on the anarthas. We're trying to dwell on Radha and Krishna. Don't dwell on various regrets in life or offenses that we've made, but take resolute determination not to make new offenses. We need to hear them at some point, but it is never our goal ever to meditate on these. Otherwise, how can any success come? We need to read them regularly, and practice the truths of what they're saying. Don't criticize. How many times has Gurudev said this to us? You know, don't hold on to these material attachments. But these are just like secondary to the principle. The principle is to remember the sweetness of Radha and Krishna. This is always the principle. Hare Krishna, this is Krishna and Radha. We're trying to meditate on them. Okay? It's not easy. It wouldn't make sense to a gross materialist what we're saying here. But we're not gross materialists. We're aspiring transcendentalists. So it does make sense. Because we see the difference between matter and spirit. They're totally different. We're aspiring to come to our spiritual full-blown consciousness. It's nothing like a material consciousness. We don't have the same priorities as a materialist at all. We're prepared to do all kinds of things, like get up at some ungodly hour, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and take a cold bath. It's a godly hour, yeah. But I mean, can you imagine telling a materialist this? You know? So it doesn't compute materially, but spiritually, it makes sense, we can reconcile it. So think of the positive always. Artha pravriti. Artha means wealth. Pravriti is the positive part. And artha is what is useless, Nivritti is the negating path. Not this, not this, not this. We're dwelling on the jewel, the wealth, and what is the positive path. Artha pravritti. This is our meditation. Shri Gurudev ki jai. Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. 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 Jai Jai Radha. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.